In every American election, there is a plan, a strategy, a guiding of the electorate to the thinking process of every candidate. And it would appear to many that one plan still in motion for Donald Trump is to claim the election process is fixed, that it is already decided against him. But why would a supremely confident candidate say this if he was convinced he was going to win? Which brings us to the all-important down ticket races, a phrase most Americans had never heard before this current election cycle. And with voter confidence growing in Hillary Clinton, what should those running for office other than the one at Pennsylvania Avenue be doing to fix their chances right now? And if there is one thing Americans need to convince themselves of once and for all, that need for bigger pants and an extra seatbelt on the plane did not happen overnight or simply by magic. And we have the legendary magician Penn Jillette to make that point and more. No magic needed for your calls and comments at 1-877-Newsmax. 1-877-639-7629, seeking to prove that most of what is happening at the moment in American politics is just sleight of hand, or so we hope. I'm Ed Berliner. This is The Hardline for Tuesday, August 2nd, 2016.
A man came up to me and he handed me his Purple Heart. Now I said to him, is that like the real one or is that a copy? And he said, that's my real Purple Heart. I have such confidence in you. And I said, man, that's like big stuff. I always wanted to get the Purple Heart. This was much easier. Don't worry about that, baby. I love babies. So I love babies. I hear that baby crying. I like it. What a baby. Actually, I was only kidding. You can get the baby out of here. That's all right. Don't worry. I think she really believed me that I love having a baby crying while I'm speaking.
A Purple Heart that may not have been real, which supposedly was easy to get, and a baby kicked out of a rally. It's another day ending in Y. Never before in the history of American politics has there been a moment such as this, one that certain people are regaling in. Others see it as the downfall of political institutions and maybe even a venerable political party. A time when power brokers for one party are beginning to feel completely helpless in bringing home the vote, not merely for the presidency, but for those key Senate and House races that will tell the real difference when Supreme Court nominations are on the docket. Where the same decision makers in another party are deep into feeling completely helpless as well, due to being saddled with a candidate that might bring home that precious vote only if she can hoodwink enough people into liking her before they hang her in effigy. Let's focus on one problem at a time. Donald Trump is in full-blown attack mode against certain media outlets, pulling credentials for those he believes are not covering him fairly, seemingly preparing his supporters for a November defeat possibility by blaming everybody and anybody else for what may or may not happen. All this while he tightens the vice being felt by those Republicans seeking elected office at the state level and bringing the president and his sometimes questionable past into the fray, which could be exactly what he has planned all along in the hopes it will backfire on his challenger. This is the real Game of Thrones, one where your phone calls should be a part of the action. Dial us up right now at 1-877-Newsmax, 1-877-639-7629. Let us welcome back the former Republican congressman from Texas, former majority leader, author of the book Revival, Revolution, Rebirth. Tom DeLay joins us on the show. Congressman, a pleasure to talk to you again. Let's go ahead and get to work. We got a lot of ground to cover here. Let's lead off, first of all, with Donald Trump talking about this being a rigged race. I'm going to go back to what I said a few moments ago. Donald Trump is confident, so are his people, that he can defeat and will defeat Hillary Clinton, will be the next president of the United States. If someone is so confident, why does it seem to many people as if he's warning them almost that if I should lose, it wasn't my fault and it wasn't your fault, it was somebody else's fault? It's an odd take, is it not?
It's pretty odd, but I can understand what he's trying to do. He's trying to appeal to everyone he can get that hates the government, hates the leaders in the government, hates the media, and calling the system rigged plays into that hatred. The problem he's having, that the way I see it, is that most of those people are ready for Donald Trump. He's got a huge amount of people that he's got to convince to vote for him or against Hillary, and that's what he ought to be disciplined in moving forward. Now, having said that, Republicans have always complained about election fraud, and there's going to be a lot of election fraud in this, and he better be organized well enough to be into those polling places to stop that fraud.
Well, let's get to that, because I want to go back, and here's Donald Trump talking about this conspiracy against outsiders in the election process, and this is where he uses the word rigged. And then I want to ask you something to follow up that follows up on what you just said. Here we go.
First of all, it's rigged. And I'm afraid the election's going to be rigged, I have to be honest. Because I think my side was rigged if I didn't win by massive landslides.
If he is going to continue along this tack, which he likes and his supporters like, shouldn't he have some evidence?
Well, that's what I was going to say. Can you explain to me what you mean by rigged? It's pretty straightforward. Everybody goes to the polls on November the 8th and votes, and then the votes are counted, and we have a winner. Other than stacking the deck in precincts that can be stacked, and I don't know if that's rigged, it's fraud. I don't know what he's talking about being rigged.
And isn't it fair to say that if you're going to go after people, you need to have some evidence? Here's something else, going after the media. Look, you and I both know we're smart enough. We've been around the block more than a few times. There are illegitimate and basically what are second and third rate media outlets that are out there that are always biased. They're going to be biased for Hillary Clinton. They're going to be biased for Donald Trump. It's just the way they work. Now he's going after one of those outlets that many people believe is flat out biased and will go for the left every single time, the New York Times. Here he goes.
And you look at the New York Times, I mean, I call it the failing New York Times because it won't be in business for another, probably more than a few years unless somebody goes in and buys it and wants to lose a lot of money. But the New York Times is so unfair. I mean, they write 3-4 articles about me a day. No matter how good I do on something, they'll never write good. I mean, they don't write good. They have people over there like Maggie Haberman and others. They don't write good. They don't know how to write good.
He is, of course, being mocked today for the phrase, they don't know how to write good, which is horrible grammar from somebody who's been a grammarian most of his life here. But again, let's be very honest here. The New York Times does and has had a liberal bent for many years, but they are still considered to be the gray lady, and many people look at them, the Washington Post and others, and say, look, these are the outlets. Okay, but let me ask you, though, if he goes after them, fine. There are those out there that we know that are going to be completely biased. Is this not just a waste of time, in your opinion, and in many other people's opinion? And not only that, but if they're against you, go at them. Take them on. Give them the facts, and let them go ahead and try and report that. Don't you do a better job if you beat the illegitimate media at their own game?
Well, I got to tell you, it's really risky, to take on people that buy their ink by the barrel. And that's an old-time political axiom. But I got to tell you, this is a different election. And again, I go back to this notion that people hate the media, they hate the politicians, they hate all these things, and he's playing into that hate. And frankly, he's got to do it a little smarter, as you say. I mean,
let me get to that, if you will. Let me stop you there. A little smarter. How should he be smarter? You've been there before. You've seen this.
The way it's smarter is, one, you get other people, when somebody like Paul Krugman, who writes an op-ed piece against you, then get other people to write op-eds against him, and take him on personally and punch him back. I'm all for that, especially if you're going to get into this notion of taking on the media. But you've got to have enough substance to take them on and undermine their credibility. But somebody's got to hold the media accountable. Nobody is nowadays.
Agreed. No, absolutely agreed. And that's why, quite frankly, for somebody who's been in this business more than 30 years, I call them the illegitimate media and the legitimate media in many cases.
Right.
We could spend weeks talking about that, because I think by the time we got to that, we could create a list that would go on and on and on. Let's move on to something else here. Late today, Donald Trump said he is going to refuse to back House Speaker Paul Ryan in his upcoming primary election. Said he didn't say he wouldn't, but he said he's not quite there yet in endorsing him. Also said he would not support Senator John McCain from Arizona. To many people, this seems to be payback from Donald Trump. You didn't get behind me, so I'm going to use my power to basically say, I'm going to try to push you out. Is this, in your opinion, the smart thing for a POTUS candidate to do?
Not at all. This is really dumb. I got to tell you, what's he going to do with all those people in Wisconsin? And he needs Wisconsin badly that love Paul Ryan. Now, I'm not a big John McCain fan, but he's got a lot of fans in Arizona, and Arizona is another very important state that the Donald needs in his. You can't. Maybe he's going to prove us all wrong, but you just can't do this because it depresses the vote, and he needs 60 to 65 million votes in order to win the presidency. I bet he's not at 20 right now.
If we talk about depression, then let's look at what New York Republican Richard Hanna did. He came right out. He said, I'm going to cast my ballot for Hillary Clinton this November, first Republican member of Congress to cross party lines and vote directly against Donald Trump. Isn't this dangerous for the future of the Republican Party? Not just in the down ticket, which we'll talk about next segment, not just in the down ticket this year, but moving forward?
Well, I've got to say that Donald Trump's done a lot of damage to the party already. He's got the party fighting amongst themselves like I've never seen before. Real emotional arguments going on. I mean, I've had very strong arguments with very close friends of mine that I've never had in 30 to 40 years I've been involved in politics. That alone is just splitting the party all over the place.
What about those people who would say, I got about a minute left here before we take a break, but what about those people who would say, and I'll bet you they're saying it right now, that Representative Hanna is an absolute traitor. He is destroying the Republican Party by not getting behind the man that we, the people, have put into the spot as the presidential candidate.
Well, he's going to have to take that on. But I remind you and remind him that only 40% of those voting in a Republican primary voted for Donald Trump. So there's 60% out there that will probably support the actions being taken. And I got to tell you, going into the next segment, a lot of these guys that are running for re-election are going to be on their own, completely on their own, because they're not going to get any coattails out of Donald Trump.
We're going to talk about that when we come back on the other side, because every now and then it becomes almost a talking point. Down ticket, a phrase that I said earlier that most people haven't heard before, like the last 6 months maybe. But we need to talk about that and where that is going. Please stand by. We appreciate your time. Congressman Tom DeLay stays with us after the break. We're going to dig into that down ballot strategy, ask someone who truly knows what it's like to work with Hillary Clinton, and talk about a medal that may not have actually been a medal. That and your phone calls coming up next right here on The Hardline. From the polls to personal dealings with the woman who seeks to become the most powerful person in America. Much more on the line. Let's welcome back former Texas Congressman, Majority Leader Tom DeLay, reminding that your phone calls are part of the conversation at 1-877-Newsmax. We're going to get to them. Be concise and be on point. Congressman, let's first of all get to those down tickets. We mentioned those a little bit the last segment here. And you issued a rather dire warning for a lot of the people out there about not getting any coattails. There doesn't seem to be a lot of worries about the Senate right now for Republicans. Matter of fact, Republicans don't seem to have a lot of worries when it comes to the down ticket, even with Donald Trump. Do you think they're being foolish?
No, I think they're being a little more careful than that. I think especially the Senate people are really worried about losing the Senate. I think they feel a little comfortable by hanging on to the House, but they may lose some seats. So people understand the dilemma that they're in. And I've been telling people, particularly people that have been struggling over whether to vote for Donald Trump or not, I said, look, you need to focus your resources and efforts on down the ballot. We need to be electing good, strong Christian constitutionalists to office so that it doesn't matter who's president. You're going to have a Congress stand up to that president. So I think a lot of that is going on. It looks like when you look at where the money's going, a lot of the Republican money is going down ballot, not to Trump, because Trump said he didn't need it. And so a lot of people are focused on that. You may have a rare election where these senators that are running, like in Illinois and New Hampshire and other places, the senators may get more votes than the presidential candidates.
What does it say to you when it comes out to fundraising? Because I know a number of people who have received emails from the Donald Trump campaign in the last week asking them to donate and pointing out that he will match their contributions up to 1 million given, and then up to 2 million. It would be a total in there. Plus, he is also, his campaign has sent out emails to certain people asking about purchasing one of his books, and he would then also make some sort of a matching campaign contribution. What does that say to you?
It says to me that they're in big trouble. They're not raising the kind of money that they need to be raising. Hillary Clinton's going to spend $1 to $2 billion in just the next 3 months, and they're nowhere close to doing that. I mean, it was cute, and it got him some supporters during the primaries when he said, "I don't need anybody. I can fund all this." Now it's come down to the where the rubber meets the road. He knows he's got to have a bunch of money to be out there doing something more than just holding rallies. So we'll see.
We're going to go to phone calls here in a couple of minutes. We'll just get some quick comments from the viewers at 1-877-NEWSMAX, 1-877-NEWSMAX. Before we do that, though, let's look at some of the numbers here. Hillary Clinton's poll numbers have been given quite a boost after the DNC. As a matter of fact, a CNN ORC poll shows that she has picked up significant ground on Donald Trump. Nearly 6 in 10 registered voters, 59%. say that Hillary Clinton is better prepared to handle foreign policy issues. 36%, said the same of Donald Trump. In your experience, if you were sitting there and at the right hand of Donald Trump and his people, can you give them some sage wisdom here on how to turn this around?
Well, one way to turn it around would be to lock up the candidate and run the campaign.
You're not, I'm speechless for one of the few times that doesn't happen very often on this show. You are then basically saying that the way to go ahead and succeed at this point is to shut up the candidate?
Yeah. Well, I've seen campaigns not for president, but I've seen a lot of campaigns where the candidate never got out of his front yard and they ran and won. So it could happen, probably not in presidential, but he's got to find some discipline.
You're awful. I'm going to tell you right now, Congressman, you're awful lot of Christmas card lists right now when it comes to Donald Trump supporters. I will guarantee that. Let me just get a couple of comments in here from our viewers here. I want you to opine on these as well. Rich is in White Plains, New York. Rich, you think Donald Trump needs to stop hedging his bets? Give me 30 seconds and tell us why.
Well, thank you, Ed. Thanks again for taking my call. Trump has proven that he has no core beliefs because he is constantly hedging his bets. He is a serial vacillator and liar. Just today he says he loves babies, that he hates them. Hillary has regained her pre-conventions lead, so Trump now says the election is fixed against him. He made the same claim in the primary when the system was actually working in his favor, when he was taking 100% of certain delegate states with only 40% of the vote.
Okay, I got to stop you there. Got to stop you there because I only needed 30 seconds. I got a lot of people here. I want to move on. Jeff is in Cincinnati, Ohio. Jeff, you believe, and I want the congressman to hear this too because we talked about this at the top of the show. You believe the election is rigged against Donald Trump. How can you believe that? What's your evidence?
Well, of course it is, because when Hillary was wanting to give all the illegal aliens a license, she said it was so she could track them. We all knew that was baloney. It was so they could vote. Well, since that didn't pan out for her, now she wants to call everybody a racist, so because we want to be sure that it's Americans voting for Americans, and they're crying about the Russians interfering in the election. Well, even if that's true, I don't care, because what they did to Netanyahu in Israel, they tried their damnedest to get Netanyahu not elected by turning their back on Netanyahu and making the Israeli people feel that the United States didn't have their back.
Okay, let me go ahead and take what you've just put in here because you mentioned, we brought up Hillary Clinton. Congressman, let me get to you right now. You know the Clintons. You've been involved in working with the Clintons at a very, very intimate level, if you will, politically here. What's the truth here? I mean, what is the real fact here about Hillary Clinton that you can tell us here in your personal dealings with her? Is she just flat out as big a liar as people want everybody to believe, or is she just another politician? What's the reality?
Well, she is probably one of the biggest liars that ever walked the face of the earth. I can tell you that. And the combination of Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton is an awesome combination. And I got to tell you, they will do everything legal or illegal to get elected. That doesn't mean the system is rigged. Now, what that means is you got to design your campaign knowing that they will pull anything and everything that they can, legal or illegal, to win this election. And you better be prepared for it.
And I'm going to play devil's advocate here. That's what happens when you've been doing journalism for a long time here. Didn't you just describe every single veteran politician in the last 100 years in America, and certainly right now?
No. There's a lot of good people that are serving us.
Glad you said that.
You can't put Hillary Clinton on every elected politician. There are a lot of good people that are serving us, but it ain't Bill Clinton or Hillary Clinton. They're bad people.
Speaking of the Clintons, here's Tina from Fayetteville, Arkansas, oddly enough, where the whole dynasty began. Tina, you believe the system is rigged against Donald Trump. Look, that's a very easy thing to say. We have people all the time try to say it. The congressman and I have been talking about it. You tell me in 30 seconds and be on point what your proof is.
Well, I have absolute proof. My thinking is that two things. One, Donald is going to talk about the rigged system. It's going to get him some Sanders votes, maybe, because they lost their candidate because of a rigged system. And so there may be some, something there where they can identify with poor old Donald Trump, poor old Bernie Sanders. The other thing is that everything I have seen for many, many, many years about the Clintons is that they will leave nothing to chance. Whatever that means, however it is, they're not in the position that they are in. The Clinton Cash movie and Hillary's America movie, they're not where they are by chance. They are there.
I think you just hit on something here, and I appreciate the call, Congressman. Isn't that the point? This is a political family, a political dynasty, love it or hate it, that has been around for a long time. And when you're around that long, you get to figure out how to work the system to your advantage. And that's exactly what we're seeing happening here.
Oh, most definitely. And that's why I said earlier that they'll do anything legally or illegally to get elected. But you have to be just as good, or not as base as they are. But you got to understand this, and you got to design and organize a campaign to counter it. It's not the system that's rigged. It's the people that you're running against that you have to deal with.
The system works when it's worked honestly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
I only got a few seconds left here. Donald Trump today reportedly received not a real Purple Heart, but NBC News found out later that it was a replica Purple Heart from someone in the crowd. And his quote was, "Man, that's like big stuff. I always wanted to get the Purple Heart. This was much easier." I only got 20 seconds. I saw a lot of people who served in the military, and they went, "Easier to get a Purple Heart?" You got to be a little careful what you say here.
Yeah. I can't say more than I said earlier. They just got to lock him up.
You know that's not going to happen. That's not in a million years, and people don't want that. But, boy, I'll tell you, easy, I don't think I know anybody who ever thought it was easy or needed to be easier to get a Purple Heart. The book, once again, is called Revival, Revolution, Rebirth. And let's remind people, we are here to talk about the honest factors here, and people do want Donald Trump to be elected. Get a copy of this book and learn about the system and what the congressman has been through. Congressman Tom DeLay, always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you so much. Has this cycle of elections created a darker America? That and a whole lot more with the political animal, and we continue right here on The Hardline.